Here's pre-calc. This is problem 9-34, and it's asking you to sketch a graph of 6x minus 2 over x plus 5. So I just sketched a graph by hand. Now I see that my scaling, I could have scaled it differently. I'm counting by ones. But the first thing I did is I looked at x plus 5 I get a zero denominator when x is negative 5, so I knew I had a vertical asymptote at x equals negative 5. And then I wanted to know where the graph, where the x-intercept was, so I know that whenever, the fraction, when y is 0, that's the x-intercept. So when this numerator is 0, that's where my x-intercept is going to be, because that's what makes this fraction 0. So I went 6x minus 2 equals 0 to get my x-intercept. And I found out that it crosses the x-axis at 1/3. And then I looked at it and I remembered something about rational functions. When the degree of the numerator and the degree of the denominator are the same, then there's a horizontal asymptote at whatever the ratio of the coefficients is. So 6 over 1, those are the coefficients of the, those are the lead coefficients. So I'm counting by ones, so this is at 6. And then I thought I had enough information to go ahead and sketch it. I know it goes through here. I know it wants to follow this asymptote. I know that that the rest of the graph, I know you can't really see the graph, but part of the graph is going to do something like this. And then the other graph is, the other part, it's not going to be exactly like this, but it's going to follow along the asymptotes this way. If I would have scaled my graph a little more carefully, hey, look here, let's look right here. So that's why in your book they scaled the graph a little differently. See, they're counting by sixes, 6, 12, 18, 24, just to make it, to show more of the graph. So that's my graph, and then I'm just supposed to, after graphing it, I suppose they ask us some questions. Where are the questions? Letter A says, what's the domain? So I want to say it's everything but 5. So x is all numbers except for, negative 5. And then letter B says, what happens as x approaches negative 5? So as it approaches negative 5 from the left, we go to infinity. Y goes to infinity. But as you approach negative 5 from the right, we go to negative infinity. So I just wrote plus or minus infinity. What happens as x approaches infinity? As x approaches infinity, y approaches 6. And it's approaching it from below. And then as x approaches negative infinity, y is still getting closer and closer to that asymptote, that horizontal asymptote at 6. So that's all.